If a tree falls in a forest when no one's around, does it still make a noise? If Trump makes any noise, is he still a racist? The answer to both those questions, according to the mainstream media, is yes. Despite Trump's consistent record in condemning white supremacy, the media continues a tired and false campaign against Trump's apparent refusal to speak out against bigotry. The latest example, Trump's misspeaking in the debate. Despite it being obvious to anyone the right of Lenin that Trump was telling Proud Boys not to seek violence while the democratic process was being carried out, the media pounced on the opportunity to distract away from Biden's poor performance. Every mainstream outlet lit up with attacks in the days following the debate. But who are the Proud Boys? Can they clearly be categorized as white supremacists? Is the media giving you the full story? Well, the answer to both those questions is no. This is Political Election 2020. I am United Smith, and as always, I am joined by Connor Allen.
Hello, and what an introduction that was.
Yes, my best yet, I think, my best work yet. So just before we get into this, please, consider subscribing to our channel. If you do enjoy our content, hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm, basically. And just comment down below as well. Tell us what you think. We've had some good discussions in there. We've been facilitating, I think. We're making YouTube comments great again, basically. But honestly, the best thing you can do is share this video with your friends, family, anyone. Even if, you don't agree with us and you want to show your friends, how stupid we are or how racist we are. So, as I said in the introduction, the mainstream media has gone after Trump like a
rabid
pack
dog.
Of wolves, a rabid bulls pack of whatever. I've not picked any article in particular here. There's literally dozens of them, kind of. But this one's from the Washington Post. Let's just have a read of the first few paragraphs, okay? So, President Trump refused to condemn white supremacists and armed militia members Tuesday during a bellicose debate in which racism emerged as one of the most contentious issues. He called out one far-right group using words that some of its members embraced as a call to arms rather than a denunciation. Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, Trump said, after Democratic rival Joe Biden challenged him to decry far-right supporters who have taken to the streets in recent months, brandishing weapons, and cited the Proud Boys. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, and how right he is. Trump's equivocation came during an intense and openly hostile portion of the 98 minutes? Wow. With two candidates offering sharply different approaches to the issue of racial division.
And of course, he did say that he would denounce white supremacists. Yeah. He said, I'll denounce whoever you want. Tell me who you want me to denounce. Chris Wallace said, white supremacists. And he said, he would denounce them.
Yeah. Biden interjected and he's like, Proud Boys, which every time I hear Proud Boys, it reminds me of that song, like Wild Boys. But that's such a daft name. But yeah, Wallace said to him, "Oh, you tell him to stand down, while votes are being counted or whatever, if the election's still going on." And he was like, Proud Boys, stand down, stand back, or whatever, stand back and stand by. And I think it's clear, what he was saying. He could have been more clear, 100%. And I think he missed. Really, it was a clear opportunity for him to attack Biden. He has not shied away from condemning white supremacists before of anyone. He's just vowed to declare the KKK as a terrorist group, as well as Antifa, actually. And this idea that he's trying to pander to the base or whatever, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. He has more to lose by coming across as a white supremacist sympathizer than he does to gain. He's just going to turn away all moderates with that. So I think, though, I mean, considering he won the last election, that it doesn't really turn them away because they can, I assume, clearly see through the media's bias reporting on this, and they don't actually believe that Trump is a white supremacist.
I mean, yeah, I mean, everyone watching that debate, everybody could see what happened was he was feeling the pressure. You know, he has millions of people watching him. You would be nervous too if you were on that debate stage. And he made a simple stumbling over his words. The question perhaps caught him by surprise. And he had one thing in his mind. He was saying it. He had another thing in his mind. And he ended up saying, stand by. Instead of, stand aside or something. Yeah, stand down or stand aside. I think the media need to be a bit honest with themselves here, because he wasn't telling them to, as a call to arms, or something like that. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
And he says, "Oh, will you condemn us?" I said, "Yes, I will do." And I think they're being, very pedantic about his particular use of words, because I don't think there's really anything else they've got that they can attack him with, really, in that debate. If you look at all of the weak moments, I think all of the weak moments came from Joe, not Trump, and so they needed something to attack him on, and they're being very pedantic about his use of words. He says, "Sure, I will do." In his mind, he's like, "Yeah, that's enough. I've done it. Now I want to focus on Antifa. I want to get Biden to denounce Antifa," which of course he didn't. So
he didn't even believe it existed. He thinks it's an idea.
So I just think he was so, in his mind, he was so quick, like rushing to call out Biden on Antifa, that he was just, like you say, stumbling over his words or whatever. He then, of course, later comes out, clarifies exactly what he means. Still apparently not enough. It's all just a dog whistle. There's so many racist people in America that he just has to dog whistle to them, and he wins the election, apparently. That's how he won the last one, supposedly. So, and Russia as well.
And this is the great thing of the trick of the left, isn't it? Because what they do is they say it's a dog whistle, so they can take literally any sentence and then call it racist. Doesn't matter about the intent, doesn't matter about the actual words said. What matters is the accusation of being called a racist.
Right, sure.
That seem okay in a democratic society?
Right, is that it's impossible for Trump to defend himself against the mainstream media, because whatever he says will be, twisted into an attack against him. Despite, I mean, you can go find, there's a video I just saw today, and it was like 20 times Trump's condemned racism or whatever, and like going back like decades up until recently, last year, just consistent saying, yeah, we condemn bigotry, blah, blah, and he must just get kind of feel tired just having to say it all the time. Just Joe Biden come out every week and go, oh yeah, and by the way, I still don't like white supremacy. I'm still not racist, guys, just in case you were. Well, he does, doesn't he, actually, because he keeps coming out of racist remarks.
Yeah.
But
in the apology speeches, he has to claim he's not a racist.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's get on to Proud Boys, though. Proud Boys. Who are Proud Boys to you?
I mean, to me, they're. I guess they're what you would call a symbol of the alt-right. But what is the alt-right? What is the? It's very loose, isn't it? They're perhaps a protest group or a militia group. They believe in less state power. They believe in right-wing ideals. Not too certain I'd call them racist, given they have quite a lot of black members.
Yeah, exactly. So their leader is half black, half Cuban, I think. I don't know all the exact details. But yeah, Enrique Tarrio, I think he's called. Yeah, so he's half black, half Cuban. They have all different races in their ranks. So I just, it seems bizarre that you might label them as white supremacists in that regard. And talking about the alt-right, I think, like you say, it's one of those loose terms that people will apply, whatever meaning they want to it. I think right now, people generally will want to distance themselves from that label because it is associated with
has a slight connotation of racism, but it's so soft, the definition, that no one can quite put their finger on it and no one can quite identify why. It's just has a kind of implication of racism in there.
Yeah, and you see this as well, like all the time. Any kind of like conservative or right-wing group constantly has to defend themselves against all of these labels of being white supremacists or racist, or they're members of the alt-right. The left categorize them in these little groups that they've already defined themselves, and then that's it. They can't attack it. They say, oh, well, you're a member of the alt-right, and we've determined that the alt-right is racist. Or you're a member of this, and we've determined that these guys are white supremacists. So there it is. End of discussion. So
well, this comes from their twisted logic, though, doesn't it? It just comes from this ideology, because you look at, and if you speak to the typical radical leftist, okay, what they'll say to you is that every single white person is born racist because they're born into these situations of privilege. They're born into these situations. And if you're not making an active attempt to challenge your privilege and do exactly what they tell you to, then you are racist. But I don't think anybody outside of the left actually believes that. We take racism to mean you have a problem with other people's races. They take racism to mean literally everything to do with Western culture and anyone associated with the history of our civilization.
Yeah, it's in their eyes, it's you're just implicitly racist just because you're white.
You're born racist.
Yeah, and this is when Trump has, recently, I think, was it an executive order? Yeah, an executive order banning the use or defunding or whatever federal agencies, including like schools and stuff, who are doing this racial sensitivity training. This is what we're talking about. This is what they're teaching children and people, just civil servants working in federal agencies, this racial sensitivity training. It's not, I think the left often tries to, frame it and categorize it as this, oh no, what they're doing is they're just saying, be considerate of other people's culture or whatever, and don't say things that, think about things that might come across as offensive to people from different races. That's not what it's about. It's telling people that they are racist by being white. By being white, whether they realize it or not, they are consciously or subconsciously racist and privileged, and they have to take active steps to undo their privilege and help minorities rise above them in the workplace or rise to their level or whatever. Not in the sense of building a meritocracy, but in the sense of hampering yourself to give minorities a better chance. That's kind of, in their minds, they're making it an even playing field, right?
Yeah, these people, they wake up in the morning and they burst into tears. Like, damn, I hate the fact that I was born in the West. Yeah, I'm still white. Damn it! Like, how can I apologize for this today? What do I do? Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's self-hated at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think this is where Proud Boys comes into the. This is where I think a lot of their arguments come from, is this idea that they call themselves, Western chauvinists or whatever. They believe that Western values are under attack because, let's look at Black Lives Matter, right? On their website, they were talking about getting rid of the nuclear family and things like this. These, in their mind, are white social constructs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's nothing to do with a white social construct. There is a civilization. Our civilizations have developed along certain lines because of the ideas they were influenced by. There's nothing to do with race. It's to do more than anything with religion, perhaps, with Christianity and Enlightenment ideals and how far that spread, which is why you see an unequal application in different areas of the world. If you go to Japan has a culture very similar to our own because of the spread of Christianity in Japan.
So all of these different ideas are effectively borrowed from different societies, different cultures that were made up of different races. So the idea to say that they're inherently white just seems kind of ludicrous. But what they are generally a collection of good values and ideas to have,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because it's elevated Western society above all else in terms of prosperity and well, just innovation and productivity and all of these different things, right?
And to call it white is so ludicrous. I mean, look at the Haitian Revolution, which is born out of the same ideals of the American Revolution, and anti-racism and equality for all, liberté, égalité, fraternité. They're all manifested in the Haitian Revolution. So I'm not too sure how those things are white ideas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and as well, I think when you look at Black Lives Matter in particular, and then and Antifa as well, their issue isn't just like race, is it? It's capitalism. They have an issue of capitalism. They consider capitalism to be this white construct as well, and in their minds, in the minds of Antifa, certainly, what they effectively want to do is overthrow the system, burn down the system, get rid of it, replace it with what they call like an equity system or whatever you want to call it, communism essentially.
They don't want to tell you they're doing that though, because they know that's a radically unpopular idea. So if you're advocating for a redistribution of wealth or a redistribution of the social order, you see that black people, because of history or whatever, they are less privileged than white people. You can draw the correlation there. That is your target. It's kind of anti-racist movement that expands past racism and goes into the free market and is attacking capitalism. It's nothing more than an attempt to redistribute wealth.
Yeah, exactly. Redistribute wealth. That's all it essentially boils down to, and they're using race as, I suppose, the tool.
A driving principle, a yardstick, whatever you want to call it.
So I think as well, the underlying issue when it comes to a Black Lives Matter and Antifa, okay, we can call them in many ways. We can consider them far left or radical left or whatever, right? But what happens is, I think a lot of people, you wouldn't call that. You would just call them left, somewhat left. Maybe they consider themselves socialist. Maybe they want a bigger state, whatever. But they all have this kind of idea that they are virtuous and them alone are virtuous, and anyone else who disagrees with them must disagree because they're racist. And this is why I think it's so easy to categorize Proud Boys as white supremacists or whatever, and why it's so easy for people to go along with it is because they cannot comprehend the idea that someone is concerned about Western culture and not think of that as being some, the subtext there is, actually white culture, right? That's the way that they see it.
Of course. It's the left, it's built in these monolithic control structures. Everything about the left is about controlling who you are as a person. There's no expression for the individual there. It's controlling the market economy. It's controlling the social society. If you want to create a system of equity, you need to put controls there. You have to make the state big. You have to bring in all these. You have to make the state the most important controller in someone's life. It makes no surprise to me that anyone who disagrees with them, they attack rabidly, sometimes violently, because from a logical standpoint, anyone who disagrees with them is a target.
Right, and these ideas are, as you said, deeply unpopular. So, since they can't accomplish these goals democratically, the only way in which they can do so is, I suppose, by building up all these different institutions and hijacking them, essentially. So the media has been hijacked to many degrees. Not all of it, obviously, but much of the mainstream media has been hijacked. The Democratic Party is on its way to being hijacked by, you have obviously like these Occupy, what they call Justice Democrats and all these, and these groups with AOC and Ilhan Omar and so on and so forth. What they're effectively trying to do is put out this idea and make it so difficult for anyone to speak out against it because of fear of being racist, and introduce this cancel culture where people get fired from their jobs from speaking out of it, that if their idea can go unchallenged, then they can rise it to a level where they'll basically start to be able to enact some of this policy, and people will be afraid to actually speak out against it. And that's what we've seen with things like the racial sensitivity training until Trump came along.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I feel like we've rambled on this one quite enough already, but I think we're probably going to hear a lot more coming between now and the election, between all of these various supposed white supremacist groups and all of this. And I do think that this battle that's going on will continue to wage on for quite some time between, groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and groups like Proud Boys or whoever, who feel like they're on opposing ends of what is becoming an ever polarizing political spectrum.